Hey everybody, it's Julene with JovesStar Astrology. It is, let's see, it's Friday, February 28th. I'm looking at my chart because I'm here to talk about the new moon. It says February 27th, but it's actually February 28th. So we are still in the effects of this new moon in Pisces that happened yesterday at 9 degrees of Pisces. Let's see, where did it come through? 5:44 p.m. Ooh, that's an auspicious number for me, 5:44 p.m. In Phoenix, Arizona. So that's Mountain Standard Time. So it would have been 4:44 on the West Coast and 7:44 on the East Coast. So check your time zone converter for wherever you are at in the world. How is it going? We're going to talk about this full moon. That's what I'm here to, or darn it, this new moon. That's what I came here to talk about. That's what we're going to go over. We're going to take a look at the chart. We're going to talk about the Sabian symbol. And I'll throw out some of my observations and feelings about this new moon. And hopefully you guys will share your experiences too down in the comments section below. Thanks for coming back. If you've been around for a while, I appreciate you being here and listening to my musings and my observations of these lunar events and the astrology. And if you're new here, consider subscribing, liking, and sharing for both of you guys would be great. It always helps. It helps me, slowly build my channel, which I very, very much appreciate. So I'm available for readings if you're interested. You know how to get a hold of me. My email address is down below. My website address is down below, and you can get a hold of me either of those places. So we will dive into this new moon in Pisces. Pisces, my goodness, Pisces, the which lives in the 12th house. Astrologically in the sign of the zodiac, and the 12th house is one of those mysterious houses where it's a blind spot for us, right? We just don't know what's going on behind the door, right? What is actually being seeded, what is being done, what is possibly ending. 12th house is the house of endings, but it's also the house of where things are reshaped and reformed before they come out in Aries as something brand new. So, it is the house of where we create things. Pisces is a very creative sign. So things can be reshaping, reforming themselves, and ready for us to start something new. The thing about Pisces is we're either keeping it on the low down, right? Because Pisces tends to be very quiet and sensitive, intuitive, but it tends to isolate and kind of take a step back and do its own thing in its own way. So we don't always know, what we're about to see or experience, but we can feel it, right? We can feel something's coming. And I think, we are seeing a lot of things, right? We're seeing a lot of things right now. So I think a lot of us might be speculating, what is going to happen? What is changing? Some of us might be pretty sure that what we're seeing is, how things are going to shake out. We might be just in a fog and a place of confusion. But again, not really knowing how things are going to come out on the other side quite yet. But we're about to start to see those things. We're coming into eclipse season. So this is the last new moon right before we start eclipse season. And we have that first eclipse on March 13th. In the sign of Virgo, which is the exact opposite of where this new moon sits. And then we also have another eclipse at the very end of March. It's actually in the sign of Aries. So it's one of those crossover eclipses where the nodes of the moon are in currently Virgo, Pisces, Virgo South Node, Pisces North Node, but the actual lunar event is close enough to the nodes of the moon to create an eclipse. And so that eclipse, the moon will be in, the moon and the sun will be in the sign of Aries. So that might be when we start to see the birth of, you know, something new, something that is being created or reshaped, reformed, or just, you know, a sense of what kind of newness, you know, we're experiencing in our lives, right? What kind of action we might need to be taking or have been thrown into, right? It just depends. You know, Aries is fire, so it can be an initiation by fire, just sort of, you know, fast and furious. This is the new beginning. And, you know, we're off to the races, which I think the rest of this year is probably going to show us that we are fast approaching a lot of new types of things where we're actually going to have to participate in creating that new thing, right? Whatever that is. So this new moon right before we get into eclipse season is, you know, in the sign of Pisces, is quite an interesting one. You know, it might be one where we're seeing, you know, where we're feeling that we need a lot of rest, right? And there's a lot of reflection going on. Pisces stands for many, many things, but the 12th house is what Pisces represents in the zodiac. And so it is very much what's going on behind the scenes, behind the doors. And I think some of those things are getting ready to reveal themselves to us, but we may not know exactly what that is. So we'll talk about what this degree of the new moon in Pisces is telling us during this lunar event. And there's a lot going on in Pisces, which makes it really, really hard to operate from a place of like, logic. You know, I mean, the opposite of Pisces is Virgo, where everything is logical and makes sense. And, you know, it's the status quo and it's what we, you know, are able to work with. And Pisces is the opposite of that, right? We don't really know potentially what we're working with. And, you know, that can create some lows, right? Some low kind of feeling. For some of us, you know, Pisces is where we feel like we're getting lost, you know, in a sea of potentially nothing, right? It's like everything and nothing all at once. And, you know, I've been going through the cycle where I have been uncertain about a lot of things for a very long time, and you guys could be experiencing the same thing. Pisces is like, what is the purpose of everything? And what is it that I need to do to find that purpose, right? And sometimes it just shows up in very, very unexpected ways. And it's not always what we thought it was going to be. And, you know, out there in the collective, it's like again, you know, back to what I was saying, we're seeing a lot of things going on, but what is really going on and how is it really going to shake out? I don't think a lot of us really know that right now. So, you know, for me, it's like kind of like taking a position of sort of sitting back and waiting before I jump in, because it might turn around very, very quickly, is sort of, you know, where I've been. And you know, if you have, you know, take a look at your chart, right? If you are a 12th house person, right, which is how we say that in astrology, then you know that a lot of things are out of your hands in your life. And, you know, if you have mutable angles where you know things are constantly changing, and that's mutability, where you just know one thing for certain is things are going to change and they may not always land exactly where you had anticipated that they would land, right? So there is a huge sort of prerequisite for being able to be flexible and understanding that really the only thing that is certain is change. And so those of us that have a lot of mutability, we already know that. So although we may not be happy or completely comfortable with the fact that we don't know what our purpose is, or what the purpose of everything going on around us is, that we understand that there is a purpose, and that sometime, somewhere, somehow, those dots, things will be connected and will be shown or led in the direction that we need to be, to open up our minds and understand what all of that was about, right? That's the hope. I found that to be the case for myself, and those of you with a lot of mutable placements in your chart might feel the same way, right? Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius. You might find that you're constantly having to adjust yourself in the world, depending on what's going on in your life and around you, right? Things just never seem to stay the same. So, and sometimes we get excited about that, right? That, maybe at some point we're not going to be stuck where we always were. And so this Pisces new moon is kind of, it's telling us, and there is a square, a mutable square in this particular lunation. And so we can feel that things are changing. And so at this point, with everything, there's so much in Pisces. Obviously, we have the moon and the sun in Pisces. We have Saturn that's been in Pisces, which can make all of this, uncertainty a little bit or a lot more difficult, right? Depending on how we want to look at it. If we want to let go of the certainty and just sort of ride the waves, and make sure we have those boundaries, right, around our sensitivities, or we're working on something that is purposeful, right, that is compassionate, and does sort of consider the whole, and us realizing that we are one part of a very big whole, right? And there very much everything is holistic these days in terms of how we're thinking, and that's how we should continue to think, right? And not to buy into every single thing. At least that's how I feel. Every single thing that we're hearing and learning and assuming, because Pisces is a lot about assuming, but that we're just sort of sitting back and reflecting and observing, knowing that there's change coming, and that as long as our hearts are in the right place, and what it is that we're trying to work on, Saturn, is of some sort of purpose, that I think there will be a rebirth and a continuation, and sort of a light and a way forward. Like, we'll be shown how we're going to go forward. And if not, there may just be an ending, right? Of, this isn't for you. This isn't what you were meant to do, or this isn't purposeful. And then all of those goblins and ghosts come out from behind the door, and you find out why, maybe. 12th house is, it's our blind spot, but, it's hidden enemies. It's things we don't see. It's, sometimes we're our own worst enemy, all of those kinds of things. So this is just a huge reshuffling. I think that we're going to have to sit back and watch the ride and wait until we get our walking papers, right? The doors open up. We find out what or who was behind the door, and we can move forward. It's very existential, and a lot of people don't deal with that very well. I don't, even though I'm a 12th house person, I have a lot of 12th house placements, I have a hard time sitting in that existential place where I don't know what's going on, because 12th house, yes, but Gemini. So I want to know the details. I want to know the facts. I want to ask questions. I want to learn something. And I want to have a direction. And that's hard because you don't always have that. It's just sort of, you have to wait until you get those directions handed to you. And I think, a lot of us aren't really at the wheel here. Even though we might think we are, we might think other people are, and that there's some kind of, structure, something that's going to save, everything and anything. But I don't know. I don't think we really know. And that's the messiness of Pisces, is we don't really know. So we have the moon and the sun and Saturn in Pisces, and we also have Mercury in Pisces. That's a tricky placement, Mercury in Pisces. Mercury in Pisces is really, it's the mind, right? It's communication. It's what we're hearing and reading, and how we're moving around and what people are saying. I say Mercury in Pisces is ask a lot of questions, not necessarily to actually move on something, but to create understanding and look beyond, right, what is physically right in front of us. That's Mercury in Pisces. We can use it that way. It's very, very intuitive. Aside from that, Mercury in Pisces can be pretty nebulous and deceitful, and we can be uncertain. And so again, it's like, don't believe everything you see and don't take off on a direction unless you have all of the facts based on what you think because I don't know, things are being turned around, so we might not know anything as it turns out. We'll see, but it's a huge lineup in the sign of Pisces, and of course the North Node is in Pisces. That's our collective destiny, so that means that there are a lot of fated things going on, and with Saturn there, it's fated and karmic. And it's like, I'm not a religious person, but when I think about Pisces things, it's like, what can I attribute to that in terms of a slogan? It's like, well, it's Jesus take the wheel, maybe, I don't know, or take it away, or there's something universal that's happening here that is beyond our individual control, but nonetheless has, I'm certain, some kind of purpose behind it. So North Node in Pisces, we're going to be shown a lot of things. We're going to be swimming a lot in the realm of Pisces and the unknown and purpose and direction for a while now, right? The North Node just went into Pisces in January. So we still have 17 months left to go, 16, 17 months left to go with the North Node in Pisces. And Neptune is there. And Neptune is the modern day ruler of Pisces. And so we've had Neptune in the sign of Pisces since 2011. So you can think about this entire time. Look at your chart. Where is Pisces? What has been going on in your chart in the sign of Pisces that maybe now you're going to be shown what the purpose of all of that is. Something is being reshaped, or you're having to let go of something, or something is falling away that you thought was stable in your life, even potentially. Pisces is also the sign of escapism, right? It's what's behind the curtain, the door, but what we've tried to escape from, isolation, things like that. So Saturn is there, and maybe it's sort of like Saturn is saying, okay, there's no more blinders on anymore. Now we're going to find out what the purpose is, and we're going to have a direction, or what it is that we've been doing is going to end, and we're going to be forced into a new beginning of some sort. So depending on where you're sitting with all this Pisces energy, it could be very difficult. It could feel really difficult right now, really sad, low, emotional, or you could feel inspiration. You could feel inspired by the fact that although you don't know what's going to change, that something's going to change. But Pisces can be a little messy, and because of that, and it's affecting our collective, like things could feel a little off the wall. Kind of off the wall crazy. Pisces is, things like mental health and drug addiction, and where overall, the collective energy is sort of, flowing, in and out through society. So it can feel a little muddy, a little jumbled, a little just kind of soupy right now. So a lot in Pisces for this new moon. And of course, we know a new moon is a place where it's a seeding point for a new beginning of some sort that can play out for a while. This new moon whatever's going on for you right now, make note of it, because especially that with Mercury there, that's perfect. That would be perfect. Like, write down your thoughts, write down what's going on, your dreams. Pisces is the dream realm, right? Where we go at nighttime. The things we can sense and feel are intuition. Write those things down, because as this new moon sorts to flower and seeds itself, in the next 6 months, we'll start to see it. Of course, we have all that Aries energy coming through, and the new beginning starts, right? The astrological new year starts at the end of March, beginning of April. So keep a notepad. That's a good way of looking back in 6 months, without just trying to remember, like, well, where was I? What was changing back during this particular time? And what did I hope was going to happen or think was going to happen? And then actually, how did it turn out? I think you might be surprised that there could be some differences. So, yeah, so I'm going to throw the chart up because otherwise I'll just keep talking and talking and talking. And I do have to go pick up my grandson from school soon. All right, so here we have this new moon in the sign of Pisces, 9 degrees of Pisces. We'll read the Sabian symbol right out of the gate. This is a mutable square. So it is squaring Jupiter, which is its modern day ruler is Neptune. We just talked about that, right? Is ancient ruler is Jupiter in the sign of Pisces. So it's squaring its own ruler, right? In a sign that wants details and facts and wants to ask questions and wants to put things together. Gemini is the sign of information, and Jupiter is not comfortable in the sign of Gemini. It can be, a little bit flippant and slapstick. It can have no filter. It can gather tons and tons and tons of information and then not know what to do with all of it, even though Gemini wants the data, wants the facts, and it wants to connect the dots. It can be overwhelming. And so now with this new moon coming through and it being the ruler, this new moon, this new phase maybe is saying, okay, now it's time to suss things out, right? This is more about writing things down and, like I said, asking questions. And even possibly, because a square creates tension, right? We have to sort of make an adjustment, right? In a mutable sign. So things are changing. So it is where maybe we don't have form or understanding. Pisces, a new moon. This is the beginning of that cycle where we have to start putting some things together and realizing that everything doesn't fit, right? Or we don't have the bandwidth to deal with everything, or maybe the information that we've had or we've gathered or we're getting or what we're learning, even we have to do something with it, right? But because Jupiter wants us to know the truth about things, and it wants to give us a direction, and it wants to have us experience growth, right? And in the sign of Gemini, that's all about information or movement, really, in some way. Jupiter can and does make things bigger. So how can this show up? Well, how are we feeling right now with this Pisces new moon? I went over all of the different things that we could be feeling and whether or not we're flexible enough to sort of ride the wave. But we could be feeling tension in that, oh, well, I have to figure out, the answers, or I have to know the direction that I'm going in. And you may not know that. Jupiter in Gemini, it can be a little manic sometimes. Like I said, it can sort of pop off and not have a filter. But if we remain flexible, I think, and try to pare things down to the details, and sort of wait it out and just, know that when it's time, we're going to have to let some things go. And what we've vetted, because I think vetting in Jupiter and Gemini, it can be a lot. And we're going to be hearing a lot and seeing a lot and all of those things that I just talked about when it came to Gemini. But the other side of Gemini is Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is about higher truths and knowledge and justice. And it is about learning. It's the higher mind, right? Very much about purpose. So, Jupiter and Gemini can, if we balance it out, like go towards Sagittarius, find somebody to help you, put it all in writing. Look at the bigger picture, I think, is just not sort of shooting from the hip, maybe when Jupiter is in the sign of Gemini, because, those things may not be connecting exactly the way that we envision, just because there's too much. Not that everything's wrong, right? Or the facts or the data is useless. It's just that what is purposeful and what is going to help us right now is what we need to suss out. And there just may be a lot of that. And I think this new moon is telling us that we have to maybe start sorting through those things, right? Maybe we have to start sorting through those things, keeping the bigger picture in mind, and filing away some things and keeping the things that actually can connect us to what it is that we're trying to do right now. Maybe it's something like that. And it can create a tension, right? And you can feel like, oh, I want to know, I want to grow, I want to be, I want to do. And it's the direction. Maybe it's just there again with that Pisces is so much confusion. It's like, don't blow up, right? Not knowing the direction you're going to go. Just, file it out and find out how it all fits together rather than make some kind of move, even though it might feel like you have to, because it could feel like that. I would also say, if you're not certain, hold your tongue, because Jupiter and Gemini can jump the gun. So hold your tongue, sit back, and kind of be ready to move when you get the cues to move. Do something else with that, and because those squares, that there can be tension and anxiety, right? Again, it's Gemini's communication, so it could we could open mouth, insert foot. We could take on more than what we're able to handle. Things like that. So just, be careful. Humor is very important with Jupiter and Gemini. Jerry Seinfeld had a Jupiter and Gemini. So very, sort of dry, sarcastic sort of sense of humor. And I think we can use that to put things into perspective as long as we're not being offensive, right? I'm going to read the Sabian symbol for it's going to be 10 degrees of Pisces, because we round up when we look at the Sabian symbols, as you know. And so here we go. Pisces 10, an aviator in the clouds, keyword observation. The theme is global perspective. This symbol speaks to rising above the limitations of eye-to-eye problem solving and viewing things from a higher, more holistic point of view. Well, there we go. The image of an aviator in the clouds emphasizes imagination, exploration, and curiosity. The implication here is that this degree refers to creative or abstract thinking and the development and testing of new ideas. At its highest, this symbol represents broad-mindedness. You see how these Sabian symbols are interesting, because it pulls in something that's being activated. So like 9 degrees of Pisces is obviously activating 9 degrees of Sag, is activating 9 degrees of Gemini, in this case also 12 degree, in that span between 9 and 12, and also Virgo. So these Sabian symbols, it's like they pull kind of everything in, to sort of let us know what is being balanced, what is potentially coming in. That's what I love about the Sabian symbols. Symbols represents broad-mindedness, exceptional scope of vision, and the ability to foresee and plan effectively for future needs. Negative would be head in the clouds, impracticality or aloofness, and rejection of social responsibility. The accent is on perspective. What seems to be true at first glance may not be, when all the factors are taken into consideration. Your greatest advantage lies in distancing yourself from a difficult problem or situation in order to take a more objective view. Look at the whole picture. Find the patterns in things and events. The patterns. Astrology is the study of patterns, but Gemini is very much pattern oriented, right? Finding the patterns. So is Virgo. That is very much present in mutable signs. Look at the past before you go to the future. See, put all your knowledge together. This symbol is talking about observing from a distance, right? Looking at the bigger picture. Don't jump in feet first quite yet, because we don't know potentially how things are going to shake out. I would say this means don't take sides at this point. I know I keep pushing, but we do have Pluto and Aquarius, right? This is stepping back, detaching yourself from societies, churning and garbage and weirdness, and coming up maybe with your own impressions, your own direction, your own way of doing things. Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for a long time, but that reminded me of that, and Pluto is a big influencer in the sky right now, in our society right now. Guard against losing touch with what's going on by isolating yourself or living in a dream world. And that's what Saturn and Pisces, I think, can help everybody do right now. It's like, even though Pisces wants to isolate and it does want to live in a dream world, because, sometimes looking at the reality of things really sucks. I mean, I think we all know that, especially these days. But Saturn there is going to give us some kind of key that we can't do that, right? It's time to find purpose in some way. That can come through hard lessons. Don't get trapped in your own mindset and blind yourself to the obvious. Stepping stones, transcendence, exploration, perspective, overview, circumspection, observation, vision, long-range planning, domination, surmounting, going beyond, rising above, viewpoint, outlook, abstract thinking. Exactly. That is exactly what Pisces is asking us to do, right? Just, we see that there's so much loss and that we're seeing, like, but life is changing. That's very Pisces. Our life is changing. The opposite of that, where the South Node in Virgo is the status quo, what we've always done every day, how we've always felt, what our routines were, the kind of work that we did. It's all changing. The South Node is about letting go. Mercury, the ruler of South Node, is in Pisces. So it's in the opposition. The way that we have always done things, or that we're comfortable, or, Virgo is the minute details, right? The perfection of everything. The universe is saying, no, things aren't going to be status quo. You've got to be flexible enough to see a vision forward, to find a purpose, to think beyond, what's going on right in front of you and in the material, and participate maybe in, reforming or reshaping something that is going to be new. And Pisces and the 12th house is the sign of sacrifice, right? It's a sign of sacrifice and selfless service. So giving something up for the greater good, right? And Virgo is very much about, no, I'm going to hang on to my routines. I'm going to hang on to the way that I do things. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be right. There's no other way, because it won't work. Well, maybe, and this, in opposition and the nodes, it's never about giving away, everything that we used to do, but maybe it's about reworking things and realizing that some things need an upgrade. We have to change the way that we've always done things. And Virgo has a tendency to really get stuck in that. And with Mercury and Pisces, I think it'll give us a flexibility to move off of that. And with Saturn there, we might be being forced to move off of that. Things are not what we thought. Things are not the way that they were. Things aren't going to be perfect. And we're going to have to deal with that, because we're building something new. And, tomorrow, Mercury is going to go retrograde. It's interesting because we have the eclipses March 13th and March 29th. But before that, we have a Mercury that's in the sign of Pisces right now, contributing to this new moon, going into Aries and then going retrograde on March 15th. So really, it's in its shadow phase as of right now. So we're going to get a taste maybe of something new, or an opportunity to create new experiences, or have a new idea in the sign of Aries. But there will be some reworking, and this could be something that we had already envisioned or wanted to work on, or that has come up for us. And it could be a project, it could be a conversation, it could be a person, something in this Mercury as ruler of the South Node right before this retrograde is telling us that we're going to work through maybe some fogginess, and maybe we'll get started on something, but maybe it'll be a false start. We're going to have to go back and rework something, or something will come back that we're going to rework or reconsider. Venus is in Aries right now, as you can see over here. And you're like, well, how does Venus play into this new moon? Well, it's part, obviously the chart is, it's any planet within a chart is not operating in a vacuum, right? So Venus has just come out of Pisces and it is at 10 degrees of Aries and it goes retrograde tomorrow. So we're coming into eclipse season. We've got this new moon seeding the next 6 months. And Venus is going retrograde tomorrow. Well, no, March. Well, tomorrow I'm doing this on the 28th, so I'm a day late. But it's going retrograde on April the 1st in the sign of Aries. Venus is all about love and beauty and what's easy, and it wants to be a little bit lazy and it's comfortable, being able to sort of frolic through life and not take things too seriously. But it's in the sign of Aries. And so Venus doesn't really like it in the sign of Aries. And so when it comes to love and money and things like that, we can shoot from the hip when it comes to Aries, right? We can get really excited about something that we want, or it's something that we're doing, and then it can fizzle out and burn out just as quickly. So with Mercury going into Aries, and they're going to meet up, Mercury and Venus. So a lot of Aries, this is good, right? It's a spark of energy. It's the beginning of something new, but it indicates that we have to rework something from the past. Again, these may not be easy things. Starting in Pisces, going to Aries, and then moving back into Pisces. Well, they just may be showing us, what it is that we have to look at from a different perspective, a broader view, or what we have to hold back from. But definitely something that we need to focus on. So Venus, love, money, beauty, things like that. And Mercury, the mind and communication. So maybe it's about having conversations about things where those things are concerned, or just, I wouldn't lay a bet on the table, right? Right out of the gate when it comes to things that might be coming in and out of Aries and Pisces. So I think the eclipses will show us, reveal itself, even reveal things even more. And eclipses are really about sweeping things away, and so we can start things new. And so it'll be an interesting time. And this new moon kicks it off. So I mean, I see it as positive in a sense that, we will have a clean slate to start from, but we might lose things that we have been attached to in the meantime, with Saturn and Pisces, those are old things, right? Things that are old and maybe the clock has run out. And so all of those things are changing. Everybody's going to experience this a little bit differently, but this is definitely a time of observation and pulling the facts in before making any kind of moves. And as Jupiter moves through Gemini, there'll be more information, more facts come in. But I just don't think that unless we've slowed down and taken the time to observe from a bigger picture standpoint and, work those things out, that, we're not going to know for certain if, it's a false start, or if what we're hearing is true, or what we're doing is true. And I think we might receive information, or knowledge, or some kind of truth. And that could be what the square represents as well, that helps us move forward. And maybe Mercury and Venus have a lot to do with that. I think ultimately on the other side, it's something new, but it could be very difficult and emotional in the interim, depending. So it's all about perspective again, and the bigger picture. And going with the flow. We do also have here, which is definitely mentionable, Saturn in the sign of Pisces that is trining Mars in the sign of Cancer that has just recently gone direct. And Mars in Cancer, the retrograde, which lasted for a very long time, was difficult for a lot of people. And, Cancer is about maybe letting go of the past. It's emotional, ruled by the moon. And it can be about family, and Mars can be, difficult and a bit aggressive at times, but nonetheless wanting to move forward and get on with it. But it's an emotional sign of Cancer. So is this letting the past go? It could be. Is this, have something to do with making changes in our family, or, our securities? We're feeling threatened even. Saturn trine Mars is a positive aspect, because it's telling us, well, here are the limitations. Here's what we're dealing with. Here's what we maybe don't know. Here's what, our purpose is, or what our work is. Saturn, Pisces, trining Mars and Cancer. And, it'll give us some kind of grounding, right? Because it can be very emotional. So, Saturn trine Mars in a water sign, not the easiest, but it's still a potential there for grounding our emotions and remaining flexible without, pulling the trigger or shooting from the hip. So keep that in mind. That trine is there. That is nice. And Mercury in the sign of Pisces, again, very intuitive, right? It can be intuitive, on the good side. It can be creative, idealistic. It can also be deceitful. We can, we got to be careful what we're hearing and saying, and, all of those good things. Oops. When we have Mercury in Pisces, but it's sextiling Uranus in the sign of Taurus. And that's real, practical, right? Uranus, the higher mind, things can change really quickly. A Mercury sextile Uranus in the sign of Taurus can really give us a very quick way of processing information, from what is fantasy and what is real, or how to create something and make it real and valuable. In the sign of Taurus. So that is an opportunity there. That another thing I would say, like, write things down and refer back to them later if you need to. So that sextile is really popular. Remember that Mercury is ruling Jupiter in the sign of Gemini. So more like, make notes, write things down, pull the data in. Fact check everything and be careful what you do and what you say before you do it. But the time to do something is coming. It's coming. Okay, what else do we have here in this? Oops, don't want to do that. In this new moon that I wanted to talk about. Well, we have Chiron here, personal wounding in the first house of, the self, right? Aries is the first house, and this is about wounding. It can be our body or our identity and how we take action. Mars ruled is squaring Mars in the sign of Cancer. So that is something that we probably want to be very careful with. This is tension, our own personal frustration and wounding, or something that's going on, with us personally. Squaring its ruler, Mars in the sign of Cancer, that could be conflicts with what? Conflicts within our families, our homes, from a larger, bigger perspective, in our homeland, right? People infighting. We're seeing a lot of that too, but that square is pretty difficult. So if you've got cardinal placements, Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, or Libra, and you've got placements close to 20 degrees of or 17 degrees of those signs, that can be very difficult. There could be something that's tripped off that actually starts, the ball rolling on, movement forward in some way, but something to be careful of, right? Because Aries does represent like the head and it's blood, and Mars is like cutting and accidents and things like that. So that's what I have for this new moon. Another thing I want to say, like, right, globally on a mundane level, right? Gemini, Pisces, we just talked about how it represents the aviator in the clouds. It does represent travel, right? And so air travel, nearby travel, right? In the, that's close in your environment. We've seen a lot of airplane mishaps and things lately. So, whether you're driving in your car or getting on a plane, you just want to keep your spidey sense, sharp, and, ask questions. Pay attention to what's going on around you, or do things seem to feel solid and like they're going in a good direction. You just want to really be extra careful and observe when you're traveling. It's funny because it's not funny, but 9 degrees of Gemini, and then of course you have the 9 degrees, so it's activating that, is about pulling out of a disaster, right? It's actually an airplane pulling out from a nosedive. And then you have this new moon in Pisces that talks about the aviator in the clouds, which indicates not having good sight or vision, and just kind of going by instincts. And we had that we've had several airplane issues, but I have to wonder if it's not air traffic controllers, right? Tired air traffic controllers. They're short staffed, or something is not good. That Jupiter and Gemini, that's what that makes me wonder. Like, so we had that plane, I think it was landing in, I don't know, it's like Philadelphia or something. It was just this week, beginning of the week, where it started to land, and noticed that there was another plane taxiing across the runway, and just boom, pulled out very quickly, out of that, and missed a collision there on the runway. So I wonder, and there was something here in Arizona I mentioned the last time. We've had a couple other things. I wonder what's going on with the technology, maybe even, or the air traffic controlling. But anyway, nonetheless, those things can represent, more things going on with travel, possibly even the weather, wind, rain, water, things like that. That's aside from, the astrology part of that. Just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, that's the new moon in Pisces. Let me know what's going on with you. Drop down in the comments how you're doing, how you're feeling. All of this Pisces can be super overwhelming. If you're feeling tired, down in the dumps, sensitive, sad, confused, not knowing, it's normal. Sleep is probably the best thing. Music is probably the best thing. Escape isn't, like, I would not, with Saturn and Pisces, I would tell you, like, drinking and driving, not a good combination ever, but definitely not good right now. Mental health, if your mental health is suffering, or you're not getting sleep, this is a good time to talk to a doctor, right? Because, like, maybe just things are being upended, right? Virgo can be about being nervous and feeling nervous, and then, behind closed doors. Like, Pisces is the stuff we don't talk about with people, so, but maybe it's time probably to do that if you need to. So just throwing that in there, right? But not the time to push the envelope with things like that. Not the time at all, because we could find that there's a hard stop. Remember, Saturn is in Pisces, and the new moon there, maybe there's some kind of event that shows you, what's been going on behind the scenes is probably not healthy for me, or there could be a near miss of some sort. So I hope that doesn't happen for you. But yeah, so just, if you're feeling sad, or you feel like you're losing something that you've had for a long time, or whatever the case may be, you're just sort of wandering around. Just remember, not all those who wander are lost. I had a poster up. I have a poster that says that, because I've often felt like that. With being a 12th house person is, pretty fits, right? So anyway, yeah, I mean, we all might be going through some things that we might have a hard time letting go of, because our world is changing. I have a dog, I got her 2 months before my grandson was born. So he's going to be 17. So she's 17 years old, and I love her dearly. And I know, and it's been touch and go these last few weeks. And I know I'm probably going to have to let her go soon. And I just keep wondering, like, what is the compassionate, most appropriate time to do that, and how do I do that? Or, will that just happen quietly and on its own? And I'm just sort of waiting to see. But it's sad, and I'm just, trying to, I realize that, there will be a sacrifice, and I'm going to have to probably make those decisions. And, I'm trying to do that with, her well-being, first and foremost in my mind. But again, it could be a lot of different things that we're all dealing with. Pisces, right? 12th house, the end of the zodiac. But we are likely to keep those emotions private a lot of times. That's the tendency with Pisces. So anyway, reach out if you need to. Comment down below. If you need to get a reading, you've got my information below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for being here. Take this chart off, and I really, really appreciate it. And we will talk again soon. Hang in there, hang tight. We're coming into eclipse season. Hold on to your hat. I think that we're just going to see a lot of changes. And, Aries season, we usually see fast things, start to happen fast and furiously. And so I don't think this is going to be any different, but we might see things taken away, reshaped, and put on a different path. So we shall see. All right. Until next time, take good care. May the stars forever be in your favor. Bye for now.